What would it be like for you if you're in a high pressure situation and you handled it like a boss, calm and collected? Well, this is what I call the line mode. You don't have anxiety, performance anxiety, or social anxiety. You just haven't figured this out yet. Everything that I'm going to share with you here today is quick and simple, 5 minutes a day. And over time, it becomes wired into the subconscious and it works automatically. And it's all backed through neuroscience. I'll show you all the studies, just four simple tools: set and forget, put in the reps, reap the rewards. Now, I can say this with a lot of confidence. Why? When I put my DNA into a database of hundreds of thousands of people, when it comes to anxiety, I've got a big genetic risk, 98th percentile. And when it comes to stress, 82nd. So inside every man, this is what I like to think. We've got this line: silent, studious, lethal, ready to attack, playing chess. But for a lot of men, like it was for me, they're stressed, they're anxious, especially under pressure, and they're tired because that depletes them. So in this video, four simple steps, just 5 minutes a day, and I'm going to give you all the tips, set and forget. And like what you might know, and the neuroscience is very clear on this. Nobel Prize laureate Daniel Kahneman talked about in this book here, but they've done this with brain imaging. The way you hold your face, call it resting stress face, bitch face, weak face, anxious face, it changes how you feel. And I'm going to give you trigger points to correct that once and for all. Right here, very simple to do. Now, the Navy SEALs, they train this. So if they're going to do it, you better believe I'm going to do it because they are under incredible stress. And all we got to do is train in this here. You see, when you're stressed and you're under pressure, guess what happens to your brain? It turns into a pile of steaming soup. You lose cortical activity, and your stress, anxiety, fear, and aggression brain circuits, they arc up and you can't think. So, in a nutshell, your brain is doing that plus the EEG rhythm, the frequency is at high beta. And we can quieten that down very, very quickly. And we've got to do it within 90 seconds. That's what the neuroscientists tell us. And I'll show you this. So, it's called metacognition. And when you get good at this and it becomes subconscious, and you've also got to do the reps every single day because it just won't change unless you do the reps. Your brain is better at divergent and convergent thinking. So think Einstein, remote associations. And I'm also going to give you a bonus. You've probably heard of the growth mindset before. Just one tweak, and this will self install. And as I mentioned there, it's all subconscious. It works for you without you even thinking about it. You know, a lot of people, as it was for me, I was very reactive to situations. I didn't know how to fix it. But once you train this in and become subconscious, you can perform at a very high level with emotional intelligence. Why? Because the brain, under a high pressure situation, still has cortical activity. And that's where we have compassion, empathy. And that's where we can think and create solutions under pressure. And that's the whole point. So, here is the opening part. So I just want to show you that quite simply. You've got software in your brain, which we're going to change, but you've also got hardware. Inside your brain in the prefrontal cortex, right here, it's got a break to the amygdala. So we need to strengthen that break up. And the tools that I'm going to give you here today will strengthen that brain circuit up. Now, I used to have panic attacks, social anxiety, performance anxiety. I wish I had known about this a long time ago. And I've got two videos to play for you here. But the way that I think through this is the brain circuits like the amygdala, president of distress and negative emotions. We've got to shut that off very quickly. And then the president of success, which is the prefrontal cortex, we've got to fire that one up and make it stronger and act at a subconscious level to inhibit the stress circuits. It really is that simple. So this is Professor Huberman just speaking about that fact.
You do indeed have circuits in your brain for resentment, whether you like it or not. We all do. And some people those circuits are more robust than others. But the remarkable thing is one can shift these circuits in the direction that I think most people would like, which is more sense of well-being and motivation and less resentment and fear, literally. And what's really cool about this study also is that the interventions are only 5 minutes long. It's incredible.
As I said, just 5 minutes a day. You up for that? And here's another neuroscientist just talking about the amygdala. And we can physically shrink it so it's smaller and less reactive. So check this out.
Another region we identified was the amygdala. And the amygdala is the fight or flight part of your brain. And here we actually found a decrease in gray matter. And what was interesting was that the change in gray matter was correlated with the change in stress. So the more stress reduction people reported, the smaller the amygdala became.
The smaller fear and anxiety became. So the thing about it is you've got to put in the reps every day. And I'll give you a simple framework for that. Really simple to follow. But it's going to take 4 to 8 weeks, just depending on where you are as a person. And to accelerate that, you've also got to have something called trophic support. And I'll talk about that towards the end. So in a nutshell, we can upgrade the hardware to make the amygdala smaller and also strengthen up all the circuits in the prefrontal cortex to make them stronger. And that's exactly what we want. Then we've got to install the software, metacognition. Now, the most important thing you need to understand is you've got 90 seconds to get this right. And I'll show you how to do this. It's very simple. So you've got 2 stress pathways. Number 1, the sympathoadrenal axis. Milliseconds. So the old stress circuits like the amygdala, down the spinal cord to the adrenals, boom, your heart rate's elevated. And a lot of people panic then. And then you've got about 90 seconds until the slow pathway, the cortisol pathway, all bets are off because cortisol is so high that it just binds to the amygdala and you are panicked. And it takes about 30 minutes and you've got to stop thinking negative thoughts before that cortisol will come down so your brain can come back online. So 90 seconds, we got to shut it down. Pretty simple to do. Now, another thing that I mentioned, I just want to help you install what's called a growth mindset. Now, a lot of people, as I did in the past, they've got a fixed mindset. So quite frankly, any challenge they see in front of them, they think it's too hard. There's all these obstacles and it's going to take too much effort. And then they don't like criticism. So if they're criticized, their brain starts going over here. So they just don't even want to try. They don't want to be embarrassed. And another thing, they don't like it when other people succeed around them. On the other side of that coin, we love challenges. We love to have a look at obstacles and create solutions. And we sure as hell love effort. And criticism, we'll take it on board because, what you don't know, you don't know. And we love to lift other people up and just celebrate their success. So in a nutshell, you're going to operate over here with a growth mindset and just one tool for that. That's all it is. And it all starts with recognizing what these scientists call locus of control. We want to have an internal locus of control, not an external locus of control. 2 videos. Here's the first one. So check this one out.
Well, and again, that's an extremely, so psychologically, that's extremely demoralizing. Like we know that people who have an external locus of control, that's the technical term. You may have encountered this in your psychology classes. If you believe that your life is governed by external forces, you allow yourself to believe that, you're much more likely to be ineffectual, depressed, anxious, and hopeless. Okay, so that's not a great outcome because...
Hell no. So that goes back to the growth mindset. So they're kind of one in the same. And this is Huberman just speaking about the prefrontal cortex again. And what we've got to do is reframe what it means to us, the growth mindset. So here is the way you need to start thinking about it. Like everything that you need to do in your life to grow, to get to the next level of your life, you've got to reframe it. Because if you don't, your brain, quite frankly, will just go to that pattern there. All bets are off then. You're never going to move forward, ever, when your brain is operating like that. So here is Human just explaining that.
Attitude is that medial prefrontal cortex sets context. Okay? It sets context and it literally defines the meaning of your experience. Well, it does it the following way. You have a number of circuits deeper in your brain that simply create some sensations, or they allow you, I should say, to perceive certain sensations. Let's use the example of cold exposure, something that we sometimes talk about in this podcast for other reasons. If you were to deliberately place yourself into an ice bath, it would be uncomfortable, even if you're adapted to cold and so forth. The discomfort is non-negotiable. However, if you are doing it because you want to, or because you have knowledge that there are particular health benefits, the medial prefrontal cortex can then control areas of your deeper brain, like the hypothalamus, to positively impact the neurochemicals that are released into your system. The fact that you are doing this deliberately, and your knowledge that you are making the choice, that it's you that's deciding to put yourself through this discomfort, has been shown to create a very different and positive effect on things like dopamine, on things like anti-inflammatory markers in your immune system, et cetera, compared to if
someone forced you to do something. So the difference, quite simply, is over here, if you understand there are benefits for it, whether that's financial, whether that's personal, or whether that's your health, we have to reframe it as a necessary step to get to the next level of our life. Because when we do that, the brain is opened up, cortisol's at healthy levels, our testosterone goes up, inflammation goes down, and also trophic factors like BDNF go up. So our BDNF here is like the brain's fertilizer, and I'll talk about that on the next video. So it's all about metacognition, reframing it. Whatever you're doing in your life, we have to have cognitive flexibility. We have to self-regulate our emotions, and this becomes subconscious when you put in the reps, and it becomes self-conscious, subconscious, and strategic thinking. And when you have your cortex back, you can problem solve with strategic thinking, and you will have very good emotional IQ and awareness. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to work at this because, as the scientists have now shown, now there's a lot of studies out like this, and they've used functional magnetic brain images to show this point. As you can see, the findings of these studies demonstrate that the brain represents people as a sum of their mental states. So if you experience more distress and anxiety, your brain literally rewires to become more anxious. We want to flip the script and go over here. And that's exactly what we can do. Change the hardware, the prefrontal cortex, and that brake to the amygdala to shut it down, and to wire in the software to take you to the next level of your life. So here are the steps. They're pretty damn simple. So you got two voices in your head. And I like to think of mine as this cat here, the Doofus. So when you actually think about that little voice in your head, you disassociate yourself from those emotions and this brainwave state there. And I like to name it like it is the Doofus, and then visualize that little voice, and you just can laugh at it then. And when you laugh, you completely change how you feel. Now, the most important thing to understand is that your brain will try and talk you out of doing these, all right? Expect resistance. The brain does not want to change at all. You got this old wiring that just will not change, and it will say things like this to you. This is stupid. This is a waste of your time. This is never going to work. And that's what most people do. And most people don't get what they want from life. And beyond that, what you can also do is just visualize what's going to happen to you. So when you're in this constant stress state there, poor health outcomes, accelerated aging, you become estrogen dominant. It will screw up your gut. You'll have low motivation and drive and testosterone. You will have a weak mindset, and you'll be seen as a pushover. So I don't think anybody wants that whatsoever. So you've got to name that little voice in your head. And that's what I think of, this little pussycat here, and I call him Doofus. So as soon as it arcs up, you better believe I'm laughing at it. Now, here is how you're going to change to a growth mindset. So I'll walk you through this in a moment. First, I need to play 3 videos for you. So I've got an inner coach, and I'll talk about that in a couple of slides from here. And mine is a Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. So what I'm going to do is play this video for you, and this is all you have to do. It really is this simple, and it's powerful. So check this out.
Find Jocko good. Find that video. There's a video that I 100% legitimately play in my mind when I'm tired. I say good. I say it to myself. Like I was in the cold plunge the other day and I was being a bitch at like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was like, good. Listen to this video. Have you ever heard this? It's amazing.
I don't think I have.
Direct subordinates, one of my guys that worked for me, he would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on. And he'd say, boss, we got this and that and the other thing. And I'd look at him and I'd say, good. And finally one day he was telling me about some issue that he was having, some problem. And he said, I already know what you're going to say. And I said, well, what am I going to say? He said, you're going to say good. He said, that's what you always say. When something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say good. And I said, well, yeah. When things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. Didn't get promoted? Good. More time to get better. Oh, mission got canceled? Good. We can focus on another one. Didn't get funded. Didn't get the job you wanted. Got injured. Sprained my ankle. Got tapped out? Good. Got beat? Good. You learned. Unexpected problems? Good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution. That's it. When things are going bad, don't get all bummed out. Don't get startled. Don't get frustrated. If you can say the word good, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, well, then hell, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack.
That's what's up.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. That's software you can run in your mind. You can run that. You just need to listen to it and then apply it. That's real. Now, if you don't know that software, and if you know that there's a human being like Jocko out there in the world that's a real person that really does things.
So why do you think Jocko does so well and people like Rogan? Because they run this software. As soon as there's something in front of them, good. A roadblock, good. They're going to figure it out. They're going to work out how to get through it. It's that simple. Now, the next one here is from Huberman, and he's talking about a brain region that is highly plastic, and you can make it stronger and larger. And this is your courage. You're in a line. So check this one out.
The anterior mid-cingulate cortex, neuroscientists knew was there. They didn't know what it did. It's an area that gets inputs and outputs from a lot of different brain areas, like a hub. It gets inputs from the dopamine system, serotonin system, motor system. It's like interconnected with a ton of stuff. But a colleague of mine at Stanford, Joe Parvizi, is a neurosurgeon, is operating on a patient and stimulating different brain areas, and gets in and starts tickling neurons with an electrode in the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And the patient, and it turns out every patient where he does this, says, I feel like there's a storm coming at me, but I'm going to go through it. Or I feel like something's about to happen, but I can lean into it. Okay, interesting. Moves the electrode back a few millimeters, totally different picture. Okay, so this is super interesting. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex increases in size when people take on hard challenges on a consistent basis, decreases in size when they don't. It increases in size in successful dieters, exercisers, people taking on a new skill. It's maintaining size, unlike in other people. It maintains size in a group of people called superagers. It's a bit of a misnomer because what are superagers? Superagers are people that maintain cognitive ability late into life. They're constantly learning, taking on new challenges. Okay, the summary that we now have is that the anterior mid-cingulate cortex is a brain area that's highly plastic, that grows, that becomes active, and that can actually grow under conditions where we lean into things that we don't want to do.
So that's it. And I'll show you strategies about how to really implement that in a couple of slides from now. So number one is, when that little voice in your head says, don't do it, you fucking do it. You step up and do it. You say, good. And then you think about that little voice in your head, that doofus, that little pussycat. Just laugh at it. I'll give you some more strategies as we progress. This is Kelly McGonigal. And I heard this back in 2016, and I never knew how to really implement it. And I will show you how to implement that in a little bit from now. But this is how important it is to reframe what stress is, because you've got distress, and quite simply, distress, we're over here. Low T, cortisol is up, we feel like shit, we're tired. And eustress over here, we can think, we can problem solve. Testosterone goes in the up position, and your brain has what's called trophic support when you get this right. And you have better health outcomes. So this is Kelly McGonigal just explaining how important it is to reframe what stress is. Stress isn't bad. Distress is, but not eustress, man.
Might be pounding, you might be breathing faster, maybe breaking out into a sweat. And normally we interpret these physical changes as anxiety or signs that we aren't coping very well with the pressure. But what if you viewed them instead as signs that your body was energized, was preparing you to meet this challenge? Now that is exactly what participants were told in a study conducted at Harvard University. Before they went through the social stress test, they were taught to rethink their stress response as helpful. That pounding heart is preparing you for action. If you're breathing faster, it's no problem. It's getting more oxygen to your brain. And participants who learned to view the stress response as helpful for their performance, well, they were less stressed out, less anxious, more confident. But the most fascinating finding to me was how their physical stress response changed. Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage.
So isn't that worthwhile trying to train that up? And I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. But one of the most important things you need to understand is that when you're feeling these negative emotions, you've got to flip the script. Because if you don't, that emotion is still going to be negative. You're still going to be rewiring in negative emotion. So that's why step number one is to understand that the brain, when you first start this, it could take 7 days or maybe 10 days. It's going to try and talk you out of it. It's going to say, this is fucking stupid. This is ridiculous. This is a waste of your time. And again, most people quit within a few days. And most people don't get what they want from life. So this is brain training. Your brain is physically changing over time. It doesn't happen overnight. 4 to 6 weeks. So it is worth fighting for, 100%. So when you get this right, this all happens subconsciously. So number one, expect resistance, and then you just say, good, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling self-doubt. And then you breathe and do a body tension scan, and then reset your face. And I'll talk about why you want to do that in a moment. And beyond that, when you're in this moment of negative thoughts, you can just visualize the cost of not getting this right. Because over time, it adds up to poor health outcomes, becoming estrogen dominant. It destroys your gut. You got low drive, weak mindset, and you're just seen as a pushover. So you got to make it visceral. You got to really connect to the emotion. You got to fight. You got to become that lion. You got to be hungry for this every step of the way. And I'll show you exactly how to put it all together. Now, I'm going to talk about the face resetting right now. So They've shown this in brain imaging right there. So if you've got resting stress face, you've got nerves in your face that's connected to your brain. And they've shown this now. Anger increases your heart rate and your respiration rate, and you feel like shit. And then sadness, well, we all know what that feels like. Happiness, that's exactly what we want. So you laugh it off, you smile. As soon as you start smiling, I'll talk about how long you need to do this in a moment. And then fear. Who wants to feel fear and just leave that amygdala staying large and highly activated all the time? So you got to change your face as well. So what you want to think about is setting up trigger points. And I call this line breaths. And I'll talk about why this is important on the next line. So in a nutshell, Professor Huberman, so I'll show you here first. So this is the benefits of doing this kind of breath work. And it's only about 5 minutes a day. Okay? It doesn't take long at all. So it's a very low barrier to entry to get this right. And it lowers your resting heart rate at all times of the day and stress, and it improves your sleep. And this has all been researched now. So there's a lot of research coming out about what's called double inhales or cyclic sighing. So lots of benefits. And what it's truly doing is shutting off the stress response cold. So in a nutshell, when shit goes wrong in your life, you change your physiology, you start to smile and laugh and call that little voice in your head Doofus or whatever works for you. You say, good, my body is feeling anxious, and that completely changes how you feel. Then you do 2 or 3 of these double inhales. So all you got to do is breathe in through the nose, a big long inhale. Then when you're just about lungs full, another short one. That's all you're doing. Just do 3 of those. And just have trigger points around, like I've got trigger points mentioned here. So when you're making your coffee, do 3 or 5 before you eat, because that's turning on rest and digest so you can actually eat your food. Before you start work, while you're taking a break, while you get in your car, opening your phone, when you're in the shower, walking to your car, when you're in the gym. There's so many times that you can do this, and it all adds up over the course of a day. And you can also sit down and do 3 or 5 minutes of this breathing. And it's completely shutting down the stress response. And that nervous system, it's getting stronger at shutting down the stress response. And you'll find over time, in about 4 or 5 weeks, that it just happens automatically. And you're shutting off the stress response in real time. So when you do these line breaths, you want to think about number 1 here. Relax your jaw, drop your shoulders, get rid of the tension in your body, and smile. All right, just smile because it's changing how you feel. Then you can look into the distance because that takes the heat off the amygdala. Again, neuroscientists have shown this. And then visualize the man that your inner coach is calling you to become and repeat it. Own it, become it, because you are changing into powering up this inner line in you. So when I'm doing this, I'm going through all of these steps there. I'm relaxing, smiling, laughing at the little voice, and I'm visualizing the man that I need to become. So the next thing we've got to think about is what's called unconscious or hidden primes. And I've already talked about your body language there. So smile and laugh it off when you're in these negative moods and stand strong with the chin up. Because when you're all closed off like this and you got your head down, guess what? That's triggering more anxiety in you. Another thing you can do is become an energy detective. Be very self-aware of when you feel this negative shift. As soon as you feel that negative shift, that's when you engage this whole physiology. And it's really simple to do. Now, as I learned from these experts here, like Sean Aker, Harvard-trained psychologist, and he wrote in his book here, he goes on to say, for instance, individuals who are primed, meaning scientists help invoke certain mindsets or emotions before doing an experiment to either feel amusement, you're laughing it off, or contentment. So what they're showing is, if you're laughing, you're over here, and if you're got that painful expression on your face, or they're priming you to feel contentment, resentment, your brain's going over there and you're whitewashing everything you've been training to do. This is no joke. This is huge. And I also learned from two sources, Daniel Kahneman here, Nobel Prize laureate, and also Professor Sapolsky, that your whole physiology can be changed by words. So in Professor Sapolsky's book here, they got people to play this game and they primed them with words, not sentences, just words like help, harmony, fair, mutual, and it cultivates cooperation. But if they prime them with words like rank, power, fierce, all of that, it completely changes them to cheat in these board games. So words can have a big impact on how you feel. So this priming, it's everywhere. So as soon as you feel that negative shift in your energy, that's when you got to do these techniques. So let me just wrap through what I've just said. So you've got to disassociate, and the way you disassociate is label the feeling and visualize that little voice in your head. And for me, it's this little pussycat here, and I call him Doofus. Now, there's no way in hell I'm going to listen to Doofus there. I want to listen to my inner line there. And then you can also visualize the cost, all the health consequences. Your earning potential goes down, and you're perceived as being weak and aggressive. Nobody wants that. And you've got 90 seconds to trigger this whole cascade. And the next thing you want to do is think about everything I've told you, like Jocko willing. Good, I'm glad this has happened. I'm feeling anxious. And then, as Huberman said there, do the harder thing. And the harder thing in that moment is to do this. Exactly what I've been talking about here. So when you feel this shift in your energy, you do a body scan, you shake it off, you start to smile and laugh a little voice, you do the line breaths there, and you just keep doing that for about 2 to 5 minutes. And that shuts off the stress response. And again, you've got 90 seconds until cortisol builds to a level whereby you're stuck there for at least 30 minutes until these negative thoughts have gone. And another very important thing to understand is that if you continue to be in that negative mindset over the next day, your brain is going to stay there. Nothing has changed. Now, I guess it kind of seems hard to do. And the first few days, it's going to feel like it's not working. You just got to stick at it. It really is that simple. And again, most people quit and most people don't get what they want from life. It's no different than going into the gym, doing the bicep curls to make your biceps stronger. The brain works in exactly the same way. It happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's going to take at least 7 to 10 days before you really start to feel the effects of this training. So you're going to be mindful of all of these primes in words, your whole physiology. And another tool that I'm going to give you now is your inner coach. And my inner coach is Jocko Willink there. So I have got a few saved short videos on my phone, and every morning when I wake up, I listen to them. And then whenever I'm feeling a bit down, I just play that over in my head. And I do exactly what I told you that I do there. I do the 3 line breaths and I change my physiology. I smile, I laugh it off. And every time you do that, you're repping it out. Your brain is changing, but it takes time. As these neuroscientists have told us, 4 to 8 weeks it can take, just depending on the state of your brain right now. So really simple stuff. So wrapping this up, what you've got to also understand is you've just got to really be prepared to fight. You've got to laugh at that little doofus voice and listen to your inner line, because what you feel over that day is going to be encoded into your brain. So if you're feeling more negative over the course of a 24-hour period, that's what you can expect. So every time you change how you feel, that's the key. You have to change how you feel. And Tony Robbins says exactly the same thing. It's the important thing is REM sleep and what's called non-sleep deep rest. So you see here, Matthew Walker, sleep scientist, in his book, Why We Sleep. So when you get deep restorative sleep, in MRI brain scans, they showed a significant reduction in the reactivity of the amygdala. And as he goes on to say, that emotional center of the brain that creates these painful feelings. So that's thing number one. Now, number two here is a re-engagement of the rational prefrontal cortex after this sleep, and it helps maintain a dampening break to the amygdala, as I showed you earlier there. So we've got to get good sleep as well. That's a very important component of it. Now, non-sleep deep rest. There's been a lot of research on it now, and you only need about 10 minutes a day. Now, think of what I said, or Professor Huben said earlier about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and a lot of people are going to think to themselves, I don't want to do this. Well, every time you do something you don't feel like doing, that brain circuit, courage, is getting larger every time you do this. And it only takes 10 minutes. And as you can see here, they're showing this in studies now, and this one was 2nd of July, 2024. It increased, although I did a control here, just passive rest, sitting and doing nothing, or 10 minutes of non-sleep deep rest, just 10 minutes of non-sleep deep rest. So physical improvement, in physical strength went up, but there was no change in the passive rest there. Cognitive performance goes up, so faster reaction time and greater accuracy, but unchanged in passive rest. And then emotional recovery and stress, better emotional states, less stress over here, lower recovery and more tension. So you're moving in the opposite direction. So that is absolutely huge. And basically, in a nutshell, it's just a body scan. And I'm going to talk about that on the next video. And I've already recorded this video, so I'm going to release it in about 2 or 3 days. So non-sleep deep rest there lowers cortisol and your heart rate. It enhances dopamine as per Huberman's findings there. It boosts synaptic connection, which is really important for learning. And it also shifts your EEG state rhythms from high beta to low beta. And again, that's it there. So it's completely changing your brain to be over here. And this is alpha training. And the Navy SEALs do this. So as you can see there, we've just got to put in the work. It really is that simple. So if you've got any questions, drop in the comments below. And on the next video, I'm also going to talk about how to get good sleep. Because if you don't get good sleep, the amygdala is going to be reactive the next day. And you're going to have shitty emotions, negative salience, negative thoughts, cognition tanks. So your cognitive performance goes, memory consolidation, your attention, your concentration, decision-making, creativity, productivity, motor performance in the gym, and all these long-term health consequences. So we're talking about daytime sleepiness, cardiovascular disease, altered stress response, not good. You got infections, lowered immunity, cancer, metabolic abnormalities, diabetes, depression, and even psychosis. So we have to talk about how to get you good sleep, and I'll do that. I've already done that on the call, which will be out in about 2 days. So on the call in a couple of days, and again, I've already done this video there, self-directed alpha training, and how to identify other hidden stresses. So there it is. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you in a couple of days with video number 2.